When we make our emergency plans, we all want to make sure that we are seeing things from other people's points of view, that we are being inclusive not only of the types of emergencies that we are likely to face, but also the individuals that we serve. Sadie Martinez and Tim Mann are here to help explain access and functional needs inclusion for emergency planning. Sadie Martinez is the Colorado State Division of Homeland Security and Emergency Management's Access and Functional Needs Coordinator. She supports the state agencies as well as local jurisdictions in the development of inclusive whole community emergency operations plan that adequately account for people with access and functional needs. She also serves as a subject matter expert on access and functional needs during state level planning initiatives. She helps emergency managers better understand what access and functional needs resources should be considered and acquired before, during, and after a disaster. Tim Mann is one of two Colorado State Division of Homeland Security Emergency Management Access and Functional Needs Whole Community Inclusion Planning Specialists. He coordinates with local and regional partners for the integration of access and functional needs into their emergency planning efforts. The goal is to include accessible practices for the whole community in emergency planning processes, thereby ensuring the same level of preparedness for and accounting of people with access and functional needs during an emergency. Folks, would you please join me in welcoming both Sadie and Tim to the stage?
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? Test, test, test. Oh, there it goes. Test, 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 test. The okay. This is an interesting one. I think I'm going to pull the different mic. It's coming in and out. Is it? Okay. Is that better? All right. I felt like I was doing, but it is going in and out, huh? I'm still going in and out. I think I'll use this mic. Okay. All right. Well, thanks for having us here. We're so excited to be here, and we're here to actually try to bring some shared language with you as an individual, as well as emergency management, and to better understand a new a concept using an access and functional needs resource framework. Am I still coming in and out? Okay. All right. It sounds weird for me up here, so it's getting me all wonky. Awesome. And so I've been with the state of Colorado since late 2018. Since then, I've been traveling across all of Colorado to work with emergency management, stakeholders, community members to all come together with the shared language. And today we hope you're going to have fun with better understanding that framework. It's a resource framework versus looking at the demographic only tied to inclusive emergency planning. All right, with that, we're actually going to play a game. And so do what you feel is comfortable. Raise your hand, stand up. Sometimes it's nice to stand up when you're sitting all day. I always like my hip not to hurt so bad, but that might be coming because I'm like 25 again. So it always helps me with getting a little bit of stretch on. But you're welcome to do what you feel best. But we do want you to actively engage if you ever, if it pertains to you. So with that, go ahead, Tim.
Awesome. Thank you, Sadie. So, like she said, we're going to play a very quick game of Have You Ever? It's one of our favorite games in this wonderful department of ours. So to start with, have you ever lost power when you're out and about, you're traveling, and your cell phone just doesn't work anymore, and now you can't reach your friends? Can we get a show of hands? That's a pretty big chunk. I know I've been there. And have you ever been in a place where you don't understand the local language when you're traveling internationally?
As you're doing that, look around also to see how many people are raising their hand.
Most of us have been in those situations. Now, moving into a little bit of a different realm, how many people have traveled and then not had access to their medication because you forgot to pack it?
Or the planes only give you 3-day ability to travel with it. And you're gonna be gone for 2 weeks or a month.
That's excellent. Now, how many of you have gotten sick when you're traveling, whether internationally to another state, and you needed to find a doctor and had a hard time doing so? That's good. That's a lot. I mean, it's not good. But we can see that there's a lot of resources that we end up needing. Now, how many people have started to go somewhere and then you forgot your glasses and now you can't see too well? I know I have. I've left my contacts, I've left sunglasses, I've left my everyday, I need to see regular glasses. And once those are gone, I need so much help. And then from there, I want to ask how many of you have, when you've been traveling, had to find childcare because something comes up in the itinerary and you need someone to watch the kids for an hour, maybe the day? Well, that is excellent. How about when you're in the need of something comes up at home, when you have errands to run and now you also need someone to watch your child and now there's no one available?
Or have you ever had to care for somebody in either traveling or in your children or a loved one or your aging parent or an aging friend?
Well, I'm glad that we have so many caring people taking care of the people that we love. And then finally, how many of you have ever not had access to transportation because your gas ran out, your car broke down, and you don't have the tools on hand to fix your car, whether that is the flat tire or your engine goes kaput? I think most of us have been there at least once. That is excellent. That is a really good example of a lot of the different ways that we end up needing help. We need resources in those situations.
So with that, I'd like to ask, all right, did anybody not raise their hand at least once? So everybody in here, oh, just one, okay, gotcha, I could see you. I'm watching you. With that, what we want to identify here is normally, and we'll go back to even Katrina. In Katrina, a lot of you raised your hand that you have cared for a loved one or somebody that you had to care for. And in Katrina, a lot of the people did not evacuate because they didn't have the resource, that transportation resource, in order to evacuate because they were caring for a loved one. All right, that's just one of them. Also, do any of you who raised your hand at least once identify as a person with special needs? Do you identify as a vulnerable population? Now, how scratchy did that make you feel that I'm having to ask you to self-identify that you might be a person that may need access to resources in order to function? That didn't feel that scratchy, but to put a label on you and start asking you to identify that you are a person with access and functional needs, you're not. You don't identify as a person with an access and functional needs. However, you do identify as needing resources in order to function. So what we're trying to do is have a shared framework of talking about what resources do I need in order to function before, during, and after an emergency. And only you know that as an individual. Now, you in your community, working with your community and emergency management, identifying that you may need backup power because you may use a CPAP machine. That CPAP machine is what's helping you live through the night and you're maintaining health resource. Backup power, losing backup power to that does create a risk of you losing your health. Your health starts deteriorating because you don't have access to that resource. So we want you to better identify what resources you need in order to function. And so we're using a memory tool to help you better identify those resources so that you could also be able to speak with everybody. Start sharing those same these resources that we've identified that either cost lives or save a lot of lives and property. And we're going to talk about these in just a second. We're going to use that memory tool, but it'll help us all have a shared language, and then emergency management will be able to identify that, hey, we have a community who has lost power. We need about, out of these 1,500 people, we have about 50 people that need access to backup power in order to function and maintain their health. Then they know what resources needed versus, hey, we have these 50 people with the AFN. That doesn't help us identify what that resource is. So we want to all start talking a shared resource language. And so we use this memory tool.
Yes, we do. And I mentioned it a little bit earlier and spelling it out, and we call it the CMIST. That's C-M-I-S-T. And it is a breakdown of those fundamental resources that we all need access to in order to function throughout that emergency. And so you start with C on communication. That can be anything from having a translator if you don't speak English. That can be having your cell phone so that you can reach out to your friends and family and let them know that you're safe. That can be if you are not speaking and you only read, having access to the documents in a format that you can understand. And then we also have M for maintaining health. And as we mentioned a couple times, you have your CPAP machines, you have power for oxygen, making sure you have those oxygen tanks. And it's all about making sure that you are able to stay healthy, make sure that you don't deteriorate in your health during the course of that emergency
Real
response.
Quick, obviously, yes. Tim has not used a CPAP machine.
This is true.
Just because how you described it, it was cute. I just had to bring it up.
Thank you. And then beyond that, and up next, we have independence resources for I. So for me, my independence resource is my glasses. As long as I have my glasses, I'm able to read, I can see where I'm going, I can recognize faces of who I'm talking to, and I can actually understand the world around me in a way that continues to make sense. If I don't have, sorry, Sadie.
That could also fall under your communication resource because now you don't need a personal attendant to be able to read this when you don't have your glasses.
Exactly. Or I don't need the large print format so that I don't have to hold it 5 inches from my face. And so following that, we have safety and support services under S. And that is where you have your personal caregivers, you have your healthcare providers that are able to provide that direct assistance that some people need in those emergencies and in that day-to-day living. And that can be childcare, that can be your healthcare provider that lives in the home, that can be anyone who is helping you maintain your daily activities. Would you have anything to add on that one, Sadie?
In support services also is having access to, when there's the bad day that happens, the emergency or disaster, having access to my mental health or my behavioral health, that I need a little bit more of that support during that time. So I would add that, and then also our aging adults who may be starting to lose some of their memory and being able to have access to a trusted provider to help them through that time.
Absolutely. And then finally, we have our T resources or transportation. That can be access to your paratransit or your accessible vans. That can be having your own car, having a bicycle if that's how you get around. It's having the ability to get from point A to B. And that is, for a lot of people, public transportation as well. Having those bus routes available so that you can get across the city if you don't have the economic capacity to have a car.
And what I would just add, as we finish up that CMIS memory tool, now we're able to identify that we are not talking about a demographic, we're actually talking about the actual resource need. And you're able to identify what that is. For a person with diabetes, it's about having food that doesn't have high sugar content. But having diabetes, I don't have to go and say, hey, I have diabetes. And the only thing that you ask me is if I identify as a person with an access and functional need or a person with a special need, right? And yeah, I don't identify that way, so I'm going to say no. But then I need that resource in order to help me function before, during, and after that emergency or event. And so, and this also takes away from putting that label of special needs or vulnerable populations. With that concept, next slide, please. We're looking at this whole community inclusion concept. When everybody is able to have the CMIS resource memory tool and speak in that CMIS resource framework to whoever it is that's helping us get our resources, then anybody will be able to speak up by saying, hey, you know what, I have a family member that needs backup power. I have a family member who uses a hearing aid and they were left back and now they're not able to hear very well. And knowing that, we're able to start identifying that we need a backup hearing aid for that person to function with communication, right? Being able to have their communication resource as well as their independence as they're getting through the event. And then what we're doing at the state of Colorado is we are supporting our locals where they're at, whether it's rural, urban, frontier, on creating a champion, a CMIS response team champion, somebody or a team coming together during the bad day to be able to keep pulse checking or community connecting with their community to be able to let emergency management know, hey, this community is not getting the information correctly, such as COVID. In COVID, we had a community that did not speak English. They were here seasonally working in our farms here across Colorado and always just knew a little bit of broken English. Well, the information there was talking about COVID positive. Well, normally positive means great, except for in COVID. Who went and said that that's a great thing, but making it a positive, it really doesn't translate well from other languages. And so what we had to do is then find community connectors, a CMIS response team champion, to be able to identify what were the resources needed. And so when we're working in a more congregate setting, we were needing a little bit more testing, different tests to ensure that we're not spreading the virus. So that just helped us start coming in and really identifying we needed a communication resource, which was translation and interpretation. We also needed the maintaining health test kits in order to ensure we don't spread the virus. And we saw how fast that goes and spreads. And so it was a better way to have shared language, but we had somebody speaking up so nobody was left behind. And that's how we save more life and property, because we actually find the identified resource. All right. With that, we're gonna, so we have one more team member. Right now, she's back at the office. We have two ongoing meetings on the third Thursday of the month, and she's leading those ones. But the next slide is our contact information. I'm the coordinator, and then I have Gabby and Tim, who are our whole community inclusion planning specialists. And again, we are state supporting our local execution and whole community inclusion planning. And by having us come out, we're all now getting the same shared language with that CMIS memory tool, resource memory tool. Now with that, has this helped you better identify that it's not a label, it's not like originally when I first got into the position, it was just a changed language from special needs to access and functional needs. And that was the majority of everybody who understood it. And what we have done in Colorado, and it also is an extremely high demand and request of other states to better understand this access and functional needs resource framework using that CMIS memory tool. With that, what questions might you have? And I'll run around and give, the flip guides. All right. So I don't know if everybody could see it, but we do have a booth out there. We do have a personal preparedness flip guide. Now, that font is a little small at times, so we do also have an app, and on the app, you could actually pull that flip guide up and zoom in a little bit better to be able to see it a little bit better if needed. And I also have it available electronically. And in the app also, it's in Spanish as well, so sharing it also with your Spanish-speaking community members. Yeah, and it also talks about preparing for your CMIS resource disruption. If we prepare for that, we're able to take it. For instance, I guess it's been a month now or so, we had an evacuation notice that went out that was close to me. And I was like, okay, if it moves, I'm gonna have to evacuate. All right, what are my CMIS resources? C, I need a charger for my communication device. I will not be able to function without it. I better make sure I have my charger. M, my husband uses a CPAP machine. I need to make sure I grab that machine so that he's able to sleep and I'm not worrying about his health during his sleep. I, what do I need? Okay, that's my daughter's stuff. I want to make sure I stay independent, so she stays independent. And it was her glasses and her contacts. She needs those in order to function. S, support services and safety. I don't have any at this point, but I wanted to make sure I took my doctor's information and know how to connect with them. Also the vet information, because I have a fur grandchild, and that fur grandchild is equally important in all of that fur baby. I'm talking about a dog, just in case anybody wants to know about that. I had to make sure she had all of her resources as well, her CMIS resources, bark collar. I'm joking. But to be able to make sure that she is also part of this CMIS that I'm looking at. And then T, transportation. Do I have enough gas money? Do I have my vehicle? Do I need to take anything else in my vehicle? Do I need to make sure I have backup water, whatever I'm going to put in there? But I was able to quickly prepare and get out versus having a go kit. A lot of people have go kits. Sometimes they forget to do it until the last moment. Out of all of you, I'm sure all of you have your go kit ready to go and turnkey. You say, hey, evacuate, you guys are ready to go, right? Right, it's that even you're now able to go, okay, now I know what's in my go kit. Did I get all of my communication? Did I get all of my maintaining health medical? Did I get all my I? Did I get all of my S? Did I get all of my T? And that is what we're wanting to help us as we do our personal preparedness. And it helps you. And I just went to one of the booths and what was the word? I shared it with you. It's not a zero responder. It's the immediate responder. Might not be in here, but the immediate responder, you're not the first responder, but you're the immediate responder when you're a neighbor help a neighbor, or you're in the vicinity and you could help your community members who are around you. And so it's just a new concept, it's not a new concept, it's just a shift of framework concept, the resource framework concept. All right, any other questions? Would you add anything else, Tim? Oh, go ahead. Was there a question? Oh.
What ideas or how would you see faith communities helping this project, right? This consistent language. Do you have any advice or have you thought about practical ways for faith communities to help maybe our congregants or our family people know this information?
Thank you for this great question. You having this faith safety summit is number one step. You invited us to start the conversation. You now become our force multiplier. You will multiply our message now and share that within your community, your faith-based community, as well as even exercise it. Start talking and saying, hey, you know what, if you have to evacuate, what are your CMIST resources that you need? You become our partner. You also help us become more resilient because we don't have to wait until help arrives. We are able to help ourselves before the bad day happens, which makes us resilient. We become resilient and recover quicker. And so having these kind of conversations, having those kind of opportunities for your community to be able to look at that. And then also, instead of asking people, hey, do you have a special need? Being able to ask, what are your CMIS resource needs? That helps people have a better, deeper conversation versus, I don't have any special needs. It just helps open the conversation a little bit broader, and then we're able to identify exactly what the resources needed. Thank you. And if you noticed, we're running around asking for those questions, and this is because we believe in effective communication. I shared that we have those clear masks. I hear better when I see lips. so I try to practice walk the walk that we talk. And so somebody else has a question? Awesome. Yeah.
Cheryl said, "Hi, Sadie.
Hi, Cheryl.
What did you? It would apply to churches because we have quite a few senior citizens. There are people in wheelchairs, and having the CMIST applied to them would be very helpful." I think was the comment. I asked, "What is your plan?" "Oh, I'm calling 911." They'll say that might not be enough.
So having an interpreter or translator, which that's exactly what you just demonstrated there, that is a support service right there. And Gil, you don't really identify as a support service. You're just the wonderful person you are. And so I think of him as a hero, as a support service provider there. I also, when we're using even mobility devices, that is my resource. And as we get wiser, I call it wisdom. You know, those highlights that we all get. Some people call it silver or white or something like that. But as we get wiser, I've been noticing I need a little bit more access to more of a mobility support. Obviously, I shared already communication support, so I could hear better when I could see your lips. And those kind of different resources that, you know, it's just, we do it so regularly, we don't realize that it becomes that important to maintain our independence as we keep growing and getting wiser. Any other questions?
As an organization, what did you learn from the Marshall Fire?
Great questions. Because of using the CMIST framework and a lot of our preparedness work, we were able to really turn on and pulse check with our community connectors that we had relationships with. And our division, the Access and Functional Needs Program, we were able to really start identifying what communication needs are in that demographic or in that geographic area. We right away, there's a wonderful resource map that we use that helps us identify it a little quicker. It's not perfect, but at least helped us identify all the key languages that were of the affected community there. We were able to also identify childcare and in-home childcare programs that actually then That's an independence resource for family members to be able to get back to work and be able to keep functioning. So we were able to identify a lot of the in-home childcares that were burnt down, and now they're not licensed. So we were able to work together with that and collaborate with that community. We just went through that CMIST portion there. We also talked about those who lost their transportation. They owned a vehicle before and now it's gone. How are they going to get to a place if there's not public transportation or some kind of transportation resource to help them get from point A to point B in the way that I best use that resource? So me as using a wheelchair, I need to have Parrot Transit. I can't just go in a regular van or a regular Uber or Lyft if that's available in that community. So we really looked at all of those resource needs in that area. I will share with you, because that was such a catastrophic event, I always learn it this way. Federal, when it's turned on in the federal, it's a federal declaration. The federal comes in and they federally fund, the state supports, and the local executes. And after, as the local executes and they run out of their resources, the state comes in and supports with their resources. And then the federals come in and help with their resources. And they had a civil rights advisor come in, and she had, and I said, this is also a trend and also an area of celebration. It's the first catastrophic event that they said that they did not receive a civil rights complaint. And it was because we were working before and we were looking at every individual and making sure nobody was left out. Because normally those civil rights complaints come from, hey, remember me? You didn't even, nobody even gave me the resources to function. We were able to really work closer with that and their community connectors in that Marshall Fire. Yeah, you're welcome. Yay, thank you. Any other questions? It's a little hard when that's in your face. Well, thank you all.